Hey everyone, Angie here from theworkathomelife.com. Thanks so much for joining us on this webinar today. I'm really excited. We are going to be talking to some of my favorite people online in regards to finding work at home, and that is FlexJobs. And we have Brie here with us. She is the Senior Career Specialist at FlexJobs. And Brie has a master's degree in human resources and over 12 years experience working with job seekers and employers. So she is going to be able to provide us with a lot of insight into working remotely and finding those jobs that you guys are all seeking. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Brie, and we will get started. Hey, Brie.
All right. Hey, Angie. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us today, and thanks everybody for being here. So we did just launch that poll, and I've got the results up on the screen in case anybody's interested. This is really helpful for me too as we go through this information to kind of know where the audience is in terms of previous experience working from home. And so it looks like the majority, about 53%, have a bit of remote work experience, and then about 28% don't have remote work experience. That is no problem. Don't feel any pressure if you don't have any experience yet. We will talk about what to do in both situations when you are positioning yourself for remote jobs. And then 18%, yes, quite a lot. That's always good, of course. And 3% does managing my entire household count? I happen to think it does. So I think that 3%, you could put yourself in the experience bucket as well. Well, thank you all very much for being here. Let me go ahead and hide those results. And so we can all see the presentation. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about the housekeeping and how this event's going to run, and then I'll get into the topics that we're going to talk about, and then we'll dive into the presentation. So today's event's going to be about a 60-minute webinar. It ends with a question and answer session, so it'll be about 35 or 40 minutes of presentation, and then we'll save that last 15 or 20 minutes for questions from the audience. So as we are going through all of this, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in your GoToWebinar control panel. If you look on your screen and you don't see your GoToWebinar control panel, try finding a little orange arrow on your screen, and if you click that arrow, the control panel should magically appear. And there's a questions area where you can enter your questions throughout the presentation, and then at the end, we'll try to answer as many of those as possible. And then tomorrow, you will also receive an email with a link to view the recording. So you will be able to review this information and watch it as many times as you would like. All right, so let's talk about some of the topics that we're going to cover today. But first, just a little bit about me and FlexJobs for anybody who might not be familiar, some trends in the remote job market, and then finding jobs in companies for remote work, kind of the big thing everybody wants to know, and positioning yourself for remote jobs. So how do you actually put yourself out there when you are seeking remote work? And then, as I said, we'll open it up for audience questions, and we'll just try to answer as many of those as we can. All right, so just a little bit about FlexJobs and myself. First of all, FlexJobs, this year we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. So we've been around since 2007, and we list pre-screened telecommuting, flexible schedule, full-time and part-time, and freelance jobs. And you'll see that the language there is telecommuting, and then sometimes I'm talking about working from home, and other times I might say remote job. I mean the same thing when I say all of those different phrases. So as we go through this, if you hear me talking about telecommuting versus remote work, just know that those all generally mean the same thing. We've helped over 2.8 million job seekers since our founding in 2007. And on our site, we have over 47,000 researched and vetted companies, which means we've reviewed these companies. They offer flexible jobs, and they offer legitimate flexible jobs. And that could be any one of those types of flexibilities that I mentioned. And we're also a membership site, so we're a little bit different than most job boards in that instead of charging employers to post their jobs, we ask job seekers to pay a subscription fee, and that way we're not taking money from employers or scammers or those quote-unquote business opportunities that are out there to post their jobs. We are 100% focused on job seekers and making it easier for everybody to find these legitimate and professional level remote and flexible jobs. And so that's why we're a little bit different. We also offer a complete satisfaction guarantee. So for anybody who uses FlexJobs but doesn't find a job or feel that the service worked for them or offered them some kind of value, you can simply ask for a refund and we give it to you, no questions asked. That easy. We really just want to make this whole process of finding flexible and remote jobs faster, easier, and safer for people. My name is Brie Reynolds, as Angie mentioned. I'm the Senior Career Specialist at FlexJobs, and I love helping people find work, and especially work that fits their lives, which for sure remote work it falls into that category. So I'm really excited to be here and talk to you all today and hopefully give you some good information about how you can find remote jobs. All right, so speaking of which, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the remote job market. What does it actually look like? We'll talk about career fields, job titles, companies hiring, all of that sort of stuff. So first of all, let's kind of get on the same page about what a remote job is, because there are so many varieties of remote jobs that you've probably seen, especially for some of you who've done this sort of work before, either a little bit or a lot. Remote jobs, for the first point that I want to make, can either be employee jobs or freelancer jobs. So sometimes people hear remote work and they think, oh, that's a freelance type thing. You're working from home, you're finding clients. Well, it can be that way, but not all jobs, all remote jobs are freelance jobs. Some of them, I think it's about 50-50, are employee jobs where you are a traditional at-will employee of a company and you just happen to work from your home office. It just generally means that you're working outside of that traditional office building, but there are levels of remote work. And I think this is one thing that a lot of people find surprising, is that just because a job says it's a remote job doesn't mean it's 100% from home all the time. So that's something that you need to look at when you're out there searching for this type of work. If you really want to work from home all the time, you have to pay attention to the job listings and really make sure that you're applying to the jobs that fit that particular description. So at FlexJobs, we rank this in 4 different ways for the level of telecommuting. We talk about 100% telecommuting, where you would never set foot in the office, mostly telecommuting, where you are working from home most of the time, but you may need to go into the office to meet with clients or visit with your coworkers or something like that, or get training. That's often one reason as well. And then we have jobs that are some telecommuting, where it might be 50-50 or less that you're working from home. Other jobs talk about how they have the option for telecommuting, which is very vague, but it essentially means the employer is open to the idea of telecommuting, but they haven't committed to a level of telecommuting for that particular job. So that's something to watch out for as well. It's kind of negotiable. But the bottom line is that anything that is outside a traditional 9-to-5 in-office role, where you are able to work from home at least some of the time, that's something that we would consider in that wider remote job bucket. So hopefully that helps us all get on the same page and learn a little bit about the different ways a job can be remote. So let's look at some trends on who's working remotely, because this is something that has grown quite a lot over the last 10 to 15 years. So back in the 2000s, occasional telecommuting or remote work, that was about 9% of the population in the US. These are all United States statistics. And today that has grown to 38% of the US workforce works from home on occasion. Now, on occasion can mean anything from a couple days a week to complete total remote work. It's very wide ranging. It captures all the levels of remote work. And then 100% telecommuting has also grown. And I know these numbers look small, but this still represents many millions of people in the US workforce. So back in the 2000s, it was about 1.8% of the US workforce who worked from home 100% of the time. And this is employees. This doesn't include freelancers or entrepreneurs or solo business owners or anything like that. This is strictly employee jobs. Now today in 2017, that's up to 2.9%, which I believe is about 4 million people who work from home 100% of the time and never go into an office. So for whatever you're looking to do, it's definitely grown. Whether you're looking to work from home occasionally or all the time, the opportunities have grown a lot over the last 10 to 15 years. So that's all very good news. Okay, so when it comes to where these jobs are being found, we took a look at the top career fields for remote jobs on FlexJobs in particular. So we looked at our job listing data, and we found which career fields remote jobs were being posted in most often. So these 20 career fields, this is 20 career fields out of 55 that we looked at, to find out where are remote jobs being posted. And when you look at this list, you'll see, first of all, it's a wide variety of career fields. There's really not one particular industry or type of work that lends itself to remote work, there are many different kinds, all the way from medical and health, which is number one and often surprising for some people, to engineering, data entry, writing, customer service, education and training is way up there. And then, of course, the things you might think about on a more regular basis, software development and things like that also make the list. But hopefully when you're looking at a list like this, it just gives you a chance to get some ideas going in your mind as to what you might be able to do from home. So if you are thinking of staying in a field that you have previous experience and you want to kind of continue doing that, but do it remotely, you can see which fields on here match your previous experience. If you're considering changing careers or trying something new, this is also a good list to look at just, what potential career fields would you might find a lot of remote work opportunities in. But I will say, if you don't see any career fields on this list that represent you, which does happen sometimes, don't panic, because this is out of 55 career fields, and all 55 career fields that we look at post remote jobs. They do have remote job listings in them. So these are the ones that have the most, but that doesn't mean there aren't opportunities in other fields. It just is going to take a little bit more research on your part to figure out what is out there and really find those particular remote jobs. This hopefully gets your wheels turning as far as the possibilities. This slide is also to get your wheels turning. This is the most common remote job titles. So we looked at career fields on the last slide, and then as far as specific job titles go, these are the ones that our job researchers see over and over and over again for remote jobs. These are the ones that are most common. And again, this is 20 job titles out of many hundreds of job titles that they're looking at each week. So if you don't see a particular job title on here that interests you, this is not the end-all be-all list of remote jobs. This is only ideas to get your wheels turning. But again, you can see the wide variety here, all sorts of different options, and there's things in here that really do cross industries, like sales representative. I mean, that can be done in so many different industries. Writer, there are so many different types of writing opportunities out there. Even customer service. I mean, there are so many different forms of customer service nowadays for different industries, different clients, all that sort of stuff. So, just kind of get your wheels turning, get some ideas going, and really just in the back of your mind, hold on to some ideas from these slides, and think about what you might like to do. All right, so with that in the back of your mind, let's look at how to actually find jobs and companies for remote work. The first thing I want to touch on is one of the most important aspects of searching for remote work. It's the keywords that you're using to search. Now, I'm going to make the leap and the assumption that most of you are searching online for remote jobs, which makes sense. First of all, they're jobs that you're going to be doing largely online, but also there are some good resources out there, FlexJobs included, of course, that would help you pinpoint these jobs. However, the keywords that you're using to find remote jobs are incredibly important. So there are a couple keywords that I would like to tell people to avoid. Those would be work from home and work at home. Now I have the asterisk next to work at home because I know that we're being hosted today by the work at home wife, and there are some awesome resources out there, especially the work at home wife, that use that keyword. What I'm talking about here is different. So these are when you're on a job board and you're searching for jobs. This is one that you want to be cautious of. So rather than using work at home, let's say you're on some major job board or LinkedIn or something like that. Using work at home is it'll bring back some legitimate listings, but it'll also bring back a lot of scams, a lot of quote unquote business opportunities that are not necessarily, in line with what you're looking for. And work from home and work at home have been designated by the FBI as phrases to watch out for because of how many scam jobs use those phrases in particular to lure people in, which makes sense. I mean, that's how we describe this type of work. Angie is the work at home wife. I work from home. When I tell people, when they ask, where do you work? I say, I work from home. I usually don't say I work remotely or I telecommute. This is just, the common language that we use to describe this type of work. But because of that, scammers use it an awful lot to lure people in because they know that's what people are looking for. So try to avoid those when you're out there actually searching on job boards. On FlexJobs, you typically won't find those keywords unless it's some sort of description like within the job listing. the company is talking about how they allow people to work from home. But in a job title or something like that, you're probably not going to find those on FlexJobs. The keywords that we definitely recommend using are on that next bullet. So the left column is all remote specific keywords. So for anybody looking for remote work on the call, which I know is everyone, you could use any one of these and be a little bit safer. These are not used as much by scammers. They're much more likely to be used by legitimate companies, and you're much more likely to find legitimate jobs by using those keywords. So telecommute, virtual, remote, distributed, home-based, and open nationwide is one of those phrases that I like. The middle column has to do with if you're looking for freelance work in particular. These are a bunch of different ways to say freelance when you're searching. And then the right side column has to do with the hours that you're interested in working. So when you work from home, there is a wide variety of scheduling options and hours that you might be able to find in a job, from part-time to full-time, from a set schedule to a flexible schedule. So if you are, invested in finding one particular type of schedule, let's say you really want to work part-time from home, those are some different keywords that you could use to pinpoint jobs that would allow you to do that, or have a flexible schedule or something like that. So just in terms of the better keywords to use, those are really the ones when you're out on job boards searching, you want to kind of focus on those keywords and just stay away from those two at the top, which tend to lead to more scams than not, unfortunately. Okay. So where to actually search for remote jobs? There's a number of different sources, of course. I would definitely recommend going to niche job boards and smaller sites. Some of the really big box, quote unquote, big box job boards, they will give you millions of listings, but then you have to sift through all of those millions of listings to find the ones that really tailor to what you're looking for. And it's also really difficult to pinpoint the jobs that are remote on those boards, simply because they're started to do this, but they don't usually have a way to kind of specify you're looking for something that's remote. And also, even when you do that, you're bringing back a whole bunch, hundreds of thousands of listings that may or may not fit what you're looking for. And they may include, commission-only jobs, scams, those business opportunities where you need to invest, and all of those sorts of things, which might not be what you're looking for. So if you're looking for more of that professional level, quote unquote, traditional type of job, but it's one that can be done from home, smaller job boards are going to give you fewer options, but more tailored to what you're looking for. So I always recommend that even if you're not looking for a remote job, let's say you have kids looking for jobs in college or just out of college, give them that advice too. Don't go to the big job boards. There's a lot of time spent sifting through those. And then you could also go directly to company career pages. So more companies have finally started talking about the flexible work options that they offer. And so oftentimes you can find some sort of flexible work or work flexibility section or work-life balance section on a website. And they'll actually talk to write about people who are working from home in their company or what their policies are, and give you a good indication as to whether that company offers remote work. Professional and industry associations are also a great way to meet other people who have worked remotely and kind of ask them, how did they get there? How did they find that company? And just get more leads that way as well. And then the other thing that has grown, especially in recent years as remote and flexible work has grown, is people that you know who are already working remotely. So if I asked for a show of hands as to how many people know someone who works remotely, I bet you a good number of people on this call would raise their hands and say, yep, I do know somebody who works from home. So ask them, how did they get their job? What resources were their favorite when they were searching? Or what companies have they heard of who allow people to work remotely? And this includes your friends, your family, neighbors, your professional network, pretty much anybody that you talk to. Ask them what they do, but also ask them how do they do it, because you might discover a lot more people work remotely than you would think. So that's one really good tip too, is just to really start with the people that you know and asking them how they do their work, and if they know anybody who works remotely, if they get to work remotely on occasion, and just start those conversations. So some specific resources that you can use include the FlexJobs Company Guide, and this is for anybody who is either a FlexJobs member or not. The Company Guide is a public and free resource. I would recommend going to the workathomewife.com first and clicking on the FlexJobs link, because that way we know that Angie sent you, which is always good. So once you get to the workathomewifes.com, you can click on Angie's FlexJob link and get to FlexJobs to come see the company guide. And that lets us know that Angie sent you, and also that you kind of heard about us through the webinar and all that good stuff. But the company guide, as I said at the beginning, is over 47,000 companies that have offered flexible jobs in the past, and that includes remote work. And so you can sort that by the company's industry, by their location. There's a number of different ways to sort it, but it's also a really good way if you know some companies in your head that you thought, oh, that'd be really cool to work for that company, but I have no idea if they allow remote work. You could check them out on the company guide because we have histories going back years for these companies. So if they've ever offered remote jobs in the past, you will see their history of remote jobs having been offered. So you can kind of tell from that yes, they are remote friendly. Oh, and also my colleague Jen has put a link into the chat for everybody that has a special link. If you click that, it'll go straight to the FlexJobs guide, but it goes through the Work at Home Wife. So you will, you'll be able to get to us and we'll know that Angie sent you. So there's a special link for everybody. The other thing that I wanted to point out was the FlexJobs blog. So in this one also, if you go to the workathomewifes.com and click on FlexJobs, you can get there. This includes a lot of different sections and information that has to do with finding companies that work, that offer remote jobs. So there's the jobs and companies section, and then companies for flexible jobs. We're posting new lists all the time of different companies that are hiring, the types of jobs they're hiring for, all that sort of stuff. And then the 100 top companies with remote jobs in 2017 is a list that we put out every year. Our new one for 2018 will be coming in January, and it details the companies that have offered the most remote jobs over the last year. And we're talking about companies that have offered thousands of remote jobs in a given year. So it's a really good list if you want to pinpoint companies that very much support remote work and in some cases are completely remote themselves. That's a great list to go by. And then we also have lists like the 15 companies hiring freelancers the most in case you wanted to do something related to freelance work. You could also, as I said before, go directly to companies' career pages and look for sections on work-life balance or flexible work options. And then Entrepreneur and Culture IQ put out a list of the best company cultures in America. And we find a lot of crossover between a company with a great company culture and a company that offers remote work. Go figure. Maybe something about using remote workers allows the company's culture to become great. But these companies tend to have overall, excellent work-life balance. Employees are very satisfied, and they offer a good amount of remote work. And then also think of former customers at previous jobs, people that you've worked with, vendors, business partners, similar types of companies to companies that you've worked with before, and do some research on those companies. You can go to that FlexJobs company guide and just see if they've ever offered remote work in the past, because I think more and more, I'm even surprised at how many companies are offering remote work on a regular basis that you might not have thought about before. Okay, so there are some free resources on FlexJobs to check out, and that same rule applies. So if you go to the workathomewifes.com and then click on the FlexJobs link, you'll get to our site, and that way we will know Angie sent you. So the FlexJobs company guide, as I mentioned, is a fantastic resource, and the blog is also a fantastic resource. Angie actually contributed to our blog not too long ago. Thank you, Angie. So there's an article called 5 Hot Work-at-Home Fields You Should Consider. If you search for that on our site, you'll find that as well. But those are just two really good resources. They are free and open to the public, so even if you're not a FlexJobs member, you still get access to those. And so we invite you to check them out and use the resources that are there. Okay, so I did want to touch just a little bit more on job scams. I know I talked before about how using work from home and work at home as keywords when you're searching for jobs is kind of a no-no in this area. So unfortunately, there are a lot of job scams in the remote work area. And so some warning signs of those scams so that you can keep yourself safe. Each one of these bullets represents one warning sign. So it's not an indicator that a job is most definitely a scam. It just means that there's a red flag going up and you should do some more research before you proceed. So the first is if you can't find a company's name or if they use a generic email address to communicate with you. So if you're using something like a Gmail address, or the job listing doesn't mention the company's name, those are both red flags. You need to do some more research, take a deep breath before you proceed. If they have a vague job description or no job description, if they're only talking about how much money you're going to make, how few hours you have to work, basically the perks of the job, but they're not actually telling you what the work is, or they're being very vague about it, like, oh, it's, a customer service position and you'll get this much an hour and you'll only have to work these number of hours and all that sort of stuff, but they really don't tell you the tasks and the responsibilities and all of that. That's definitely a red flag. If they interview you over instant messenger or IM, that's also a red flag. We've seen this more often with scammers in the past few years, where they are using instant messenger to conduct interviews. And so they'll talk to you for maybe a minute on instant messenger, and then they offer you the job, which brings us to the next one, immediate job offers. If someone offers you the job instantly, it's probably a scam. Most employers are going to want to at least interview you for a little bit, check your references, make sure that you can actually do the job, and do those kind of traditional job search steps before they offer you a job. The second piece to this is that not only do they immediately offer you a job, but they also urge you to accept it immediately. So no 24 hours to think about it, no let me talk with my husband or my spouse, none of that. It's really just accept the job now, or we have to offer to somebody else. Most reputable and legitimate companies will give you time to think about the job offer. Basically, what the scammer is trying to do in that instance is get you to not think about it. They don't want you to think critically about this opportunity, because they know if you start thinking about it too much, you're going to realize this kind of sounds a little fishy and I don't think I want to proceed. So they're trying to get you to act without thinking. The other one that we've seen happen over the last couple of years is fake companies. So these copycat companies, scammers will take a real company, their name, it's usually a very well-known company. So I have GE here as an example. They were used in a scam just a couple of years ago. A scammer will take that company's name, their logo, they will copy their website so it looks almost identical. But when you look at the URL, there's something a little bit different about that website. So you see here the difference between the fake one and the real one. It's just those small differences that can make a huge difference in terms of whether you're looking at a legitimate employer or a fake employer. So the biggest thing I want to tell you when it comes to scams is to trust your instincts. As these red flags start going up, or as you start getting a feeling that something is a little bit off, or this employer isn't acting the way that you thought they would, take a step back. It never hurts to take a couple minutes out, do some research, and make sure that that things are good before you keep going. People only ever get hurt when they keep going without thinking about it, without researching more, without trusting that instinct when you feel something's off. And so I've heard that from a number of people who've been scammed, is that there was at some point in the process, they felt like something wasn't quite right, but they kept going anyway because they really wanted to get a remote job. And it's understandable. Nobody likes to job search. Everyone wants this to be over as quickly as possible, but it is really important to do the research, make sure you're dealing with something that's legitimate before proceeding. So trust those instincts if you do have any of those feelings. Okay, so here's a very simple search that you can do to identify scams. The first thing you want to do is when you're looking at either a company's career page or a job listing on a site, the first thing you can do is open a fresh browser. And if you use a private browser or an incognito browser, even better, because there's no search history. You'll only find kind of the most relevant search results, not related to anything you've searched before. You can search for the company's name and or the job title that you're looking at and the keyword scam and see what comes back, because you bet that when people get scammed and they are unhappy, they will talk about it online because they want to warn other people about it and because they're frustrated, rightly so, that they got scammed. And so you'll usually be able to find other people talking about this particular job title or this company that scammed them and how it went. That sometimes they provide great detail about how the scam went down and all of that sort of stuff. So it's a really easy way to just see if there are any reports of this particular job or company being a scam. You could also do the same thing, open a fresh browser and search for the company's name and the keyword careers to find that company's real careers page and then compare the web address to the one that you were on that looked a little bit fishy. So you can see, are you on a copycat site or a real site? So just a couple really easy ways to help yourself and save yourself from getting scammed. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about positioning yourself for remote jobs. And we are almost to the Q&A session. So if anybody does have questions, I've seen a few pop in there already. Feel free to put your questions in there and we'll try to answer as many as we can. So let's talk about when we actually are applying to a legitimate remote job, what should you do? The first thing you want to highlight are those top skills that you have that remote employers want. So those are things like digital communication skills, and that includes verbal and written communication skills. Essentially any type of communication that's being done over web conferencing like we're doing today, phone call, email, IM, message boards, all those different digital ways that we communicate with each other nowadays. If you have particular skills and experience in those areas, definitely highlight that. Also, your ability to self-manage and focus, because in a remote environment, you are your first line manager. You're the one keeping you on task. You're the one paying attention to time and making sure that you're getting your work done. So those are all really big skills. Proactive questions and not being afraid to speak up. Anytime we hear about somebody not succeeding in a remote job, it usually has to do with that they weren't able, sometimes anyway, able to speak up for themselves, to ask questions when they had questions, to kind of be their own advocates and get the information that they need to be able to do their job well. So in a remote environment, nobody's going to see you struggling. Nobody will see you with your brow furrowed, staring at your computer screen, kind of groaning to yourself when something isn't going right. You really have to raise your hand and seek help when you need it. So that's another big skill. Being comfortable with technology is also another one. Even if it's not a tech-heavy position, if it's just email and instant messaging and phone calls and things like that, you're not, building websites or anything. You still have to be able to troubleshoot technical problems on your own laptop, because there isn't really a help desk that you can go to and say, hey, my laptop's acting up. Can you take a look at it? So just being comfortable with technology and basic troubleshooting. And then also being familiar with remote communication tools, which I will talk about on the next slide. So we surveyed a whole bunch of remote companies and we asked them to tell us which remote communication tools they use on a daily basis. And these were the ones that we were told they use most often. So you can see there's ones for instant messenger, video conferencing, file sharing, and virtual office environments. If you have previous experience with any of these programs or a similar program that's not listed, definitely put that on your resume and in your application materials. If you don't have experience with these, it's really easy to get experience. This is such an easy way to build the skills for your resume. Almost all of these offer either a free version or a free trial. So I would definitely recommend, as you're looking for remote jobs and you're seeing what sorts of programs are needed for that type of job, jump onto that program, get their free trial or their free version of the program, and start using it, start testing it out, because it's a really easy way to say, yep, I'm familiar with that, I understand how it works, and add it to your resume as a skill that you have. So one easy homework assignment you can add to your list for after the webinar. Okay, and also as far as resumes for remote jobs, this goes back a little bit to the poll that we took at the beginning of the webinar, where we asked everybody to tell us about their previous remote work experience. So if you were one of the ones who said, yes, I do have previous remote work experience, either a lot or a little bit, you can add those keywords to each position on your resume that was a remote position. So you could do that in the job title. I've got an example there for marketing coordinator, remote, or in the location, Boston, remote office, something like that. And I'll show you examples of real resumes on the next slide. If you don't have any previous remote experience, you've got to show the skills that you have. So those two previous slides that I just talked about with the skills that employers want and the digital communication tools that employers are looking for people to understand and know, you can use those to showcase that you have what it takes to work remotely and you understand the skills that it takes, even if you haven't done it in the past yourself. So let's take a look at some resumes for remote jobs. I'll give you guys a second just to breeze through here and see if you can figure out where people have positioned their previous remote experience and or their skills on these different sections of a remote resume. All right, and that gives me a chance to have a sip of water and clear my throat. So we have 3 different sections from 3 different resumes here. And each of them have some remote experience or skills added to them, which I think they were done very nicely. So the top one, this is where you would put it in that line where you've got your job title and the location and the dates that you worked there. You can add something like telecommute, just to let people know this was a telecommuting position. The second one, and I would say when it comes to choosing what word to use, telecommute, remote, virtual, all those different ones that we've talked about, I would say follow the lead of the job listing that you're applying for. Whatever language they use that on your resume. So if they talk about it as a remote job, talk about it on your resume as a remote job. And then you can change that for each job, and that's one way of tailoring this to that particular employer. It's a small way, but it's an easy way to tailor your resume, and I do think it makes a difference to speak their language. Okay, so the second one is pertinent technical skills. And these are tools used for effective telecommuting. I like how they put this here because this could be done for somebody who does have previous remote work experience or somebody who doesn't, but who knows these programs and understands that they would be very helpful for telecommuting. So that's, they've got Join Me, video conferencing, meeting rooms, Skype, FaceTime. They've just listed all the different programs and types of technical skills that they have that would be useful in a remote environment. So I like that section as well. And then the last one, the summary of qualifications. This one really highlights somebody who has previous remote work experience. In that third bullet, it's 6 years of experience working remotely and in flexible office environments. And I really like that phrase, flexible office environments, because it's kind of a catch-all. So if you had some occasional remote work experience where, every now and then you are allowed to work from home, that counts as a flexible office environment. You don't have to be too specific about how much time you really spent working from home. If you have some previous experience, you were able to work from home and be productive, and you understand what it would take to do that on a regular basis, you can put that on your resume and discuss it. Now, you don't want to overblow it into this big thing where all of a sudden you were working from home every single day, but you can use it and say, I was able to work from home occasionally, and I understand that it takes these skills, and here's what I learned from it, and this is why I'd be able to do it well for your company. And this person also has their proactive communication skills listed in that next bullet, whether in office or working remotely. So another good way to get that skill out there of communication, which all employers with remote positions are looking for. And then this one, they also have a full-time work from home position listed underneath that professional experience section. So hopefully that helps you just get some ideas for your resume. There are also lots of examples out there on the web too. I would definitely recommend taking a look at some others to get more ideas. But just in terms of getting skills and experience on your resume that are specific to remote work, these are a few really good ways to do it. Okay, so now we have come to the last slide before the Q&A. Looks like we're pretty much right on time here. So the first thing you want to do is decide what types of remote work you want to do. So do you want to work from home completely, all the time? Or would you like to work from home most of the time, some of the time? Or do you not care? As long as you get to work from home at least some of the time, it's okay, and you would kind of take any arrangement, that's a valid response as well. So just kind of be thinking about what types of remote work. Also, do you want to be an employee or a freelancer? Or again, does it not matter? Think about each of those just so you have an idea of your mind of sort of the ideal arrangement. If you could find it, what would it look like? And then you, of course, have to start researching your field, either your current field or possible career change fields to see what's being offered. And identify your best flex-friendly skills and experience. So those remote skills, those remote tools that we talked about, and any previous experience that you have as well. Start thinking about that. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, sign up for free versions of communication tools. Let me go back there. And so, sign up for those, start playing around with them, enlist your friends or your family to help you, and let them know it's for a good cause. And then you'll be able to start adding those to your resume. Update your application materials, so your resumes, your LinkedIn profiles, anything that's going to be out there for a potential employer to see, and start reaching out to your network. And remember to shift that conversation to not just what people do, but how they do it. So you can figure out if people are working remotely and then ask them, specifics about that. And then of course you have to start applying for remote jobs. I always like to put that here because I think that's probably the hardest step for anybody who's doing a job search, is actually applying to the job once you find it. It is nerve-wracking. So I like to put it on here as, yes, you must apply. You have to actually get out there and do that very important step. Okay. So let's head over to the questions slide. And I'm happy to start taking questions as we have them. It looks like we have a good number coming in here. Okay, let me just take 1 minute to review these. I can start formulating a plan to tackle them. Good questions so far. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's start with the top, and we'll go from there. What is half-time work? Good question, Paige. So on one of the previous slides, when I was talking about the different good keywords to use, under the scheduling section, I talked about part-time, flexible schedule, and half-time. So there is this common perception of part-time jobs that they would be about 20 hours per week. If a full-time job is 40 hours per week, a part-time job would be 20. But that's actually not the case most of the time. Part-time job could be anything from 5 hours a week to 39 hours a week, depending on how the employer defines part-time. And so part-time just means anything that isn't a 40-hour-a-week job. A half-time job is usually a 20-hour per week job. So that is a job that would require about 20 hours of your week each week. And so that's really important to know. If you are looking for something that is 20 hours a week, give or take, you're going to look for a half-time job. Now, it might be listed also as a part-time job, but it's important to use both of those keywords when you're searching. So that's the difference there. Let's see. Oh, what was the name of the Culture IQ list? Yes, so the Culture IQ list, if you Google entrepreneur and Culture IQ is all one word, best company cultures in America. That's the name of that list, and it'll help you find that list. Okay. So, another question here is, does FlexJobs offer its members a resume assistant to review resumes to say, yes, it's great, or no, go back to the drawing board? Great question. So we do not offer personal resume reviews like that, but what we do, there's two different ways to put your resume on FlexJobs. One is that you can fill out information in your resume profile on FlexJobs, put in your work history, your technical skills, all of that information, and it will actually build a resume for you. So if formatting is really your biggest worry, which for a lot of people it is, it's not always that easy to format a nicely designed resume. As part of your FlexJobs membership, we will format a really nicely designed resume for you. And then you can also use that resume to apply to jobs on different websites. You can actually save it, and if you're using other websites in addition to FlexJobs, you can use that resume that we've designed for you to apply to those jobs. Or if you have a resume that you like and you want to use, you can just upload that. You don't have to use the FlexJobs resume design tool. So that's just something that we offer. We do also offer discounts on resume review services by other organizations. We don't have resume reviewers on staff, but we do offer discounts on things like resume writers and career coaches and on job interviewing and mock interviewing and that sort of stuff. So as a FlexJobs member, you get access to all of those discounts. All right, so let's look here. How effective is a website type resume? I'm not exactly sure what a website type resume would be, but let me take a guess. Is that it's sort of like something that you've seen online that's designed that kind of looks like a really fancy design? I would say it's not necessary unless you're in a design field where you need to show off your design skills. That's obviously a resume would be a great place to do that. But otherwise, I think a very basic, nicely formatted resume that you've made from, say, Microsoft Word or something like that, I think that will do the job. The main thing is to keep typos and grammatical errors and things like that off of your resume. So I'd worry more about that than really, you know, fancy formatting and stuff. Okay, so how long should you wait to hear back when you apply for a flexible position? This is a hard question to answer because ultimately it depends on the industry, the job market in that particular field, the type of job, and also just the employer's feelings on whether when they need somebody to start in that role. So for some roles, especially right now, we're in the middle of the holiday hiring season. We're actually kind of towards the end of the holiday hiring season, but there are still holiday jobs out there. Employers want people to start immediately for holiday jobs. So you're going to hear back really quickly when you apply for holiday jobs if you've been chosen for an interview or moving on to the next step. But for something that's just more of a regular ongoing job, it might take longer than that. So I will say not all employers, unfortunately, respond to job applications. So you might never hear from an employer. It's just like a traditional job search in that way. But typically they say a traditional job search takes about 3 to 6 months for like a full-time in-office job. And that's very comparable to a traditional remote job as well. So if you're looking for a full-time remote job, it's going to take about that long. If you're looking for something that's more part-time or occasional, those tend to hire a little bit faster just because they're looking for somebody to fill that immediate need for that kind of smaller role. So they tend to hire a little bit faster, but I don't want to get too specific because it's very dependent on the employer's whims and that particular job market. Will this webinar be recorded? Yes, we are recording the webinar right now, and we'll send you a link tomorrow to view the rest of the webinar. Do you ever have postings for creative type jobs like voiceover work? Yes, we do occasionally have voiceover type jobs and other creative jobs. There's an art and creative section on the FlexJobs site. Oh, I will say, for anybody who's not a FlexJobs member, you can actually view all of the jobs on FlexJobs before you become a member. So you can see what's out there and if there's anything that might be up your alley that you'd like to apply for. You'll just see a job title and a basic description. You won't see the very long detailed description, and you won't see the employer's name or their application information. But it at least gives you a way to see what types of jobs are listed and if anything would match what you're looking for. So there's an art and creative field category to look at. There's also, I think it's entertainment and media, something like that. There's a couple of different creative related fields that would probably be good to check out. But yes, we have seen voiceover work. Let's see. Any specific tips if you aren't getting much response from applications submitted on FlexJobs? Yes, so yeah, that is one of the unfortunate things about job searching in general is that there's no way to guarantee the employer will respond. What I would say is that we always hear from employers that what they're looking for is a resume that's tailored to that position. So, and this might be something that you're already doing. I don't want to make any assumptions, but one of the main things that you can do to increase your chances of getting responded to when you apply for a job is to tailor your resume and also include a cover letter. Even if it doesn't necessarily ask for a cover letter, I always recommend putting one in there because it gives yourself a chance, it gives you a chance to explain yourself and really show your passion for the position, show why you're interested in that company, and make more of a whole person out of yourself to put in front of that employer instead of just a piece of paper and a resume. Also, if they're using a scanning tool, which most employers do now, where they put your resume through a keyword scanner, having a tailored resume that is really specific to the job description, that has lots of the keywords from the job description in your resume and also in your cover letter, you get more keywords in there if you have a cover letter too. So that's the biggest thing I can recommend is tailoring your applications as much as you can. It will almost certainly mean that you apply to fewer jobs, but your applications will be way better. So you'll be more likely to get a response than if you applied to, let's say, 20 jobs, but with kind of the same resume and cover letter. Employers can immediately tell that is a resume that you've used, with a lot of jobs. It's not tailored to them. And it also doesn't help them in the keyword scanning to actually have the computer pull you out as a person that the employer should talk to. So kind of have to look at it from the computer's perspective and the employer's perspective there. Okay, so let's see. Are there remote jobs in the beauty industry other than blogs or writing? Yes, actually, in the past year or so, I have seen a number of stylist positions come into play. So you know how there's those, now there's kind of subscription style services that you can sign up for where you get like 4 outfits a month delivered to your door, kind of like the meal services like Blue Apron, but for clothes. So those companies hire stylists to help people find their style and find clothes that match what they're looking for. So that's one thing that popped into the top of my head for beauty industry type jobs that is not a blogging or writing. It's more of a sales position, a customer service position, but it's something, oftentimes they are freelance jobs, so that's something to keep in mind, but they're all remote jobs, and you would work helping clients find their style and find the right clothes for them. And those are typically called stylist or personal stylist is the other job title I've seen. Okay, so let's see. Just reading through some of these questions. Oh, yes. Okay. When applying for a remote position, some say that they must be in a certain location. Do you need to look around your location where you live, or can you look across the country for a remote job? Thank you for asking this question because it's not something I touched on in the presentation, but it's very important when you're looking at remote jobs. Essentially, most remote jobs have some kind of location requirement. About 95% of the listings that we see require you to be located somewhere, and it can be very, very wide ranging. So some of them are just, you need to be a US resident. So you're located in the United States somewhere. Others, it's more state specific. So they're only hiring in, let's say, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Texas. So they'll say that on the listing, only hiring in these particular states. Some of them do want you to be located near a particular city. And the reasons for all of these location requirements are different depending on the employer. For some, especially for the state-specific ones, it's because they're only set up to handle employment taxes in those particular states. So they're only hiring employees in those states because they've already established themselves as a business there, and they can hire people and pay employment taxes, and they don't have to set up a whole new thing in a new state. If it's within the US, sometimes it's also specific to that they're looking for people who are US residents because they are only set up to hire within the United States and not internationally. And then it also might have to do with proximity to the office and being able to be in person to meet clients or to do some meetings with your coworkers or to get training. Trying to think of the other ones. Sometimes it depends on your time zone. So especially for customer service and sales roles, they might be looking for somebody who's in a particular time zone to handle a certain clientele that are in that time zone or handle a certain shift that happens during that time zone. So there are lots of different reasons that they might require a location. But yeah, so I would include your location in your search, but also try to find jobs that are national or international as well. On FlexJobs, we have actually a way to search for what we call work from anywhere jobs. And those are the jobs that have no location requirements. So you can literally work from anywhere. You could work from the United States. You could work from Australia, doesn't matter. Somewhere in Europe, in Asia, they're all fine. And so that's about 5% of the remote jobs that we see, but we have a special search designation for that. So you can search for those on FlexJobs. Excuse me. Okay, so, this is a great question also. Lots of good questions here today. Thank you guys. What sorts of things should we expect for the interview process for a new new telecommuting job seekers? So with the interview process, typically it's very similar to a traditional interview process. So you'll probably have a screening interview with somebody who works in HR as your first interview, and that's usually done over the phone. After that, you'll have another interview with managers, other people that you might be working with. It depends. Some employers will do them just as phone interviews. Some will do them as video interviews. And then some actually have you come in person. A very small number of remote jobs require you to come in person. Most of them will be phone or video. I will say, ask ahead of time, what's the format of this interview? How many people will I be meeting with? And will it be over the phone or video? Just so you can get an idea of what you're getting yourself into. They'll typically ask common questions, just the same types of questions that you would get asked if you were applying for that job in a regular office setting. But then they might also ask you things like, why do you want to work from home? And why do you want to work for our company? And what they're not looking for is, I want to work for your company because you're offering a work from home job, and that's really what I want to do. They want to know what about their company draws you to them. And they also want to know, why do you want to work from home? You want to say things more on the side of keep it kind of business centered. So you are really productive when you work from home. You can focus really well, not, oh, I have 2 kids and I don't want to pay for daycare, and kind of all of those things that might be in the back of your mind. You don't want to say that to the employer. So they will ask you specific questions. They'll also ask you about your ability to focus and how you keep yourself on task, and whether you have a dedicated, quiet office space to work from, and that sort of thing. So on the FlexJobs blog, we do have a lot of blog posts about that specific topic, and you can find the different interview questions that get asked on a regular basis so you can prepare for those. So I definitely recommend that. And it looks like we probably have time for one more question before the top of the hour. So let me just scroll through here. Oh, okay. So this one last question, this is a really good one, and it's one that we get a lot, and it can be a little bit confusing. What are you required to have in your home office, and what will employers provide for you? So it really depends. Each employer is very specific. Some employers will give you the equipment that you need. So they'll provide you with a laptop, with headsets, even with landline phone service, if that's going to be a big part of your job. Other companies will say, here are the requirements. Your laptop has to be running on this certain Windows program, or it has to be a PC, or it has to be a Mac. But they'll let you actually, if you have a laptop that already fits that description, that's fine. Or they'll let you kind of bring your own equipment. That's called bring your own device, or BYOD, as some employers call it. So that's another option. And then a third option is some employers will tell you the requirements, or just generally what they need you to have in your home office, and they will give you a technology stipend where they actually help you pay for that sort of stuff. So it really depends. In a freelance role, you are going to be completely responsible for your equipment. So that's one thing to note. This is really just more for the employee type roles, whether or not you would have to provide your own equipment or the company would give you something. So hopefully that makes sense and kind of at least lets you know what to expect. There's a few different things. All right, and it looks like we've come to the top of the hour, and my voice has just started to get a little froggy, so that's always a good sign that it's time to wrap things up. But thank you so much, Angie. Thank you again for having us today. Thanks everybody for coming. And please, go to the workathomelife.com and click on the FlexJobs link there to head on over to FlexJobs, and that way we'll know Angie sent you. Thanks everybody, and have a great rest of the day.